All right, everyone. Joe Biden came out and did his gaffe master thing. He was talking, I guess, about like Anita Hill, and he's been attacked by Hillary Clinton, but he came out and said, well, I lament white male culture. Yeah, we need to do more. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, first and foremost, the open-air slave markets of the world aren't exactly in Scandinavia. There are definitely places where they are and where women are victimized constantly. They're not in these so-called evil, misogynistic, white male-led countries, which isn't even true anyway. I mean, when you really think about it, that's a bunch of bullshit. I also find it very funny because Joe Biden, not only is he a white male, he is a very wealthy, politically powerful white male who's been in office since the 70s and has a million political favors. To hear him talking about it, slightly hypocritical. Here's the problem for him coming out and doing this, though. This is obviously an attempt to extend his reach into the further left, but the thing that's giving him the most strength as a potential candidate, and I say potential because technically he hasn't officially jumped in yet. He's only technically a candidate, but he's acting like one and he just needs to announce. He's probably waiting for an opportune moment. Like if something else happens, like he says something really dumb, he can just announce and it'll drain away the press from really focusing on his mistake. Trump's done this a number of times. Basically, his main strength is the fact that the business Dems, like the Union Democrats and stuff, they're the ones mainly supporting him. They look at Sanders and they say, well, maybe technically viable, but he's a socialist. That's scary to them. Kamala Harris, the Green New Deal sort of stuff. Most of the other candidates are blips on the radar. Really, I mean, Warren sort of rounds it out at this point, and Warren is unelectable. So they're looking at a field in which the other candidates, I think, scare them. And then one of the reasons is wedge issue politics. A lot of those business Dem voters are white males. Or at the very least, they are white, sort of middle class, working class individuals, a lot of them in the Rust Belt. This is a group the Democrats need. When they make statements like this, it alienates them. This is a gaffe. Now, of course, within the Democratic Party, if you're asking Democrats, if you take a room full of randomly sampled Democrats and ask them, is this a problematic thing to say, to insinuate that people, because of their race and gender, are responsible for violence against women, a lot of them will say no, because you're attacking white males, and so they've been propagandized into thinking that can't be sexism and racism. It can only be racism if it's aimed at someone who's not white. It can only be sexist if aimed against women, which is not true, but that's sort of the fake Overton window that they've created in party. But Joe Biden risks losing part of his voting bloc to even candidates like maybe a Beto or even a Hickenlooper. By all means, it is possible for some dedicated centrist or center-left candidate to come in and fill the vacuum if it looks like Biden has stumbled at all. And that could really become a problem for him. Something like this should be considered definitely a gaffe, at least for a national stage sort of debate over culture and politics. It's a loss. That's not good for the general. And then even before that, because the Democratic Party does have that business core, look, Joe Biden is not going to be able to out-left Bernie Sanders. He is not going to be able to out-wedge issue Kamala Harris, who is a non-white female. It will never happen in a million years. But what he can do is stick to his guns and say, look, we need more sanity as a party, we need more sense as a party, the wedge issue thing doesn't work. Trump realized this. This is why he won. This is why he won in the primaries, and this is why he won in the general election. He forsook most of those wedge issues in favor of a national platform very early on, which was prefaced on a Reagan-era slogan of making America great again. His populistic and nativistic rhetoric bode well for anyone between the poor and the upper middle class could receive that message and it wouldn't alienate them. The idea of America versus the world, if you're running in an election and the only people who are voting are American citizens, it doesn't really matter, with the exception of some of the furthest left individuals in that society, what your views are as far as, well, I think that the dreamers are great, we should allow millions more people into the country. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't be considered a net positive. It might be during a primary in certain states, but I mean the first states to vote, Iowa. Iowa is not the most liberal state. The Democrats there disproportionately are going to be working class, certain business Democrat liberals, centrist, center leftists, and things like that. Not a lot of social justice warriors. In New Hampshire, you've got that small, like the dedicated college liberal crowd. You've got some business Dems, and then like the New England Democrats, where like environmentalism, far left, maybe it's sort of like here in Vermont, but they're more libertarian actually on certain issues, like they're not anti-gun or anything. You fast forward, you're looking at South Carolina, again, it's a red state. There you've got more of the urban liberals. There would be more of the far left, admittedly, in certain urban areas. Ultimately, though, Joe Biden's voting bloc, the bloc that he's cobbled together, gives him between 20 and 30% of the vote, roughly. He is the man to beat, but he is capable of beating himself, and this has been his perennial problem. He makes mistakes. It's not even the personality or anything. Like, I think that if he gets into the race, he becomes the candidate, he gets beaten up by some of the creepy Biden stuff. I honestly believe that that will take a toll on him. Ultimately, though, he'd be viable, except that when he's pressed, when he tries to score political points, it typically blows up in his face. This will be very good for trying to get far leftists to vote for him, except they've already decided, well, if they're economically far left mainly, they're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Because he's saying, I want socialism, free shit. That's basically what it boils down to. If they are wedge issue identity far leftists, the social justice warrior Che Guevara shirt-wearing, tie-dyed hippie Starbucks crowd, they're voting for Kamala Harris, or a few of them for Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren more on the dedicated I have no Y chromosome platform. And then Cory Booker kind of gets thrown in there along with Beto as third-tier candidates to have technical viability and are sort of along for the show. I hope that Mike Gravel tops out at 2 or 3% so that he'll get up on at least the first debate stage, and during his question all he'll do is spend 30 seconds browbeating the rest of them and saying that they're all sellouts for being pro-war and pro-wedge issue. Because he's like a geriatric old white dude. The dude is almost 90 years old. I mean, I have no question he's not viable. He's not going to become the candidate of choice or anything. I hope he throws chaos into the field. Somebody like Biden could use it, and you saw in like 2008 with Gravel, the only thing they could do is smirk at him and pretend that what he was saying didn't make sense. When he said, yeah, we shouldn't be in Iraq. Yeah, Vietnam was bullshit, basically. And it wasn't nonsense. It was actually the truth that people needed to hear. It's too bad they didn't listen more. That's about all. Peace out.